Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I bet you didn't know you could still attack with a bow. They totally do still do things. Here we go with a new character that's a Deadeye trying to play with a physical bow and playing Blast Rain. Blast Rain has had several little buffs and reworks and stuff, and at this point it's a pretty respectable skill damage-wise at the very least. It still has sort of a delay in the air that, takes a few seconds to come down. Not even a few seconds, half a second or some shit. And it does still feel a bit delayed, but there's nothing truly wrong with that these days, given that totems, traps, mines, plenty of skills do similar sorts of shit and you can enjoy them all the same. So looking at the numbers on this skill, I decided it was time to give a proper bow character a shot, and especially because I really wanted to try the Mirage Archer Deadeye nodes. Now those are the ones that give you 2 additional Mirage Archers for a total of 3, and you then place them on the ground instead of it being on top of you shooting all the time. As you can see, I do have several Mirage Archers just laying about every single time you attack, and you do have to put them in separate spots. They can't all be stacked up, so they've got a little circle around them, and you have to put it outside of that circle for a new one. So it is a bit clumsy, it is a bit weird of a playstyle, but you don't really think too much about it for clear. It's mostly a bit of secondary clear for some stragglers, some tougher mobs, some rituals, that sort of shit, and ideally in the end just a nice single target damage increase, since you'll place several of your little Mirage Archers and then start attacking a lot manually as well. So the character, given that it's fully Blast Rain, is just using a pure Fizz bow, a little bit of fire damage on it, and then Blast Rain converts 100% into fire. It's got a lot of fire pen of its own. It does scale with arrows these days, so the more arrows you have for the Blast Rain, the more powerful it's going to be, because it will shoot all of those arrows in the air and then land at once, overlapping on your enemy target. As far as a Deadeye is concerned, it's a pretty nice playstyle right now. As you can see, it's pretty quick. It's got good Mirage Archers. You got the Tailwind Gale Force stacks. We're using the Spellslinger rotation on level 1, nothing Spellslinger, just to keep Gale Force at a maximum. Seems a bit unintended, but is what it is. Here we are. And then on top of that, I just then recently started using Artillery Ballista in the build as well. We had a spare 6-link, since you only need 1 6-link for the Mirage Archers and the Blast Rain, and then get Artillery Ballista with multi-totem setup. You can already have 6 ballistas going off at once, and that really feels quite good for certain pieces of content. It seems decent for some single target action, but it also seems very nice for rituals, and in particular I've found that it's pretty good for these harbingers in Valdos, I think it's called. The ones with lots and lots of harbingers. Place down a few of your artillery ballistas. They'll keep throwing up all kinds of projectiles and then overlapping on top of those harbingers and clearing them as they spawn. As long as you're not getting too many prox bubbles in the way, it's actually pretty nutty, and some of the best harbinger clear I've had personally this league. And it's surprising to me how well these artillery ballistas are integrating into my build, because you do scale them extremely similar to the way you do Blast Rain. Additional arrows and fire damage, fire pen, full conversion and all that. And it's been quite a big increase in the build for absolutely no additional cost. All it is setting up an artillery ballista setup, spec nothing, change nothing, and it has made rituals way nicer and has done some increased single target by a good margin. And they don't feel too bad to place right now, because they're pretty damn quick. It's almost instant, and they've got a very good range to them as well. So in the end, we've got 3 Mirage Archers, 6 Artillery Ballistas, and then myself attacking. That's 10 separate clusterfucks going on the screen. So it's a nice, glorious mess, and so far so good. Yet to really take on much content, but deathless so far, I think, and feels pretty good. So let me show you how I built the character thus far. Here's our little character, Cascade of Rain, Maven Line, etc. Based around our little Blast Rain gem here. So it has by default 35% base damage, 5 additional arrows, so it shoots out 6 arrows, 100% of fire converted, Fizz converted to fire. It has 30 built-in fire pen, and then the anomalous version has 5% chance to cover enemies in ash, which is another 20% increased damage. As you can see, it's got some pretty good numbers behind it at this point and some good viability. Given that you don't have to scale a lot of penetration, it's already on the gem. If you can get, a good amount of overlap, then most bosses will take, a lot of damage from that level of additional overlap. And that might just involve using a conk effect. Maybe. We'll see how we go. It's probably fine without it, but yep, we are keeping that as an option. But we are also built around Mirage Archer, so this is a divergent quality, just a bit of extra skill effect duration, since you do place a little mirror arrow, Mirage Archer, and then move on. And that is thanks to the Deadeye ascendancy here, occupying force. Mirage Archers are not attached to you, 2 max number of summon Mirage Archers. And cannot summon them while near your Mirage Archers. So it does force you to place them in little different areas. We've then also got Far Shot, so we're a very sort of ranged playstyle. We want to be a very ranged playstyle and never truly near things. 60% more damage for that. And then, of course, Gathering Winds and Focal Point just for a stronger sniper's mark against single target enemies. And as mentioned, if you just have Spell Slinger, talked about this before, can talk about it again. Spell Slinger, level 1, attached to nothing, on your left click. Every single time you're just running around, it's refreshing, and you can get up to a pretty reliable amount of Gale Force stacks by doing nothing, whereas you can also, stack it up while attacking too. So 10 stacks is pretty realistic this way. Doesn't seem truly intended, but there it is, doing it anyway. Current links are Combustion, Inspiration, early damage with attacks, and Vicious Proj. Might still change Combustion for Conk Effect in the end, just for single target, I think. Then made this bow, so you can grab a synthesized bow base. There's plenty of different ones out there that are kind of cool. Intimidate, early pen, attack speed, fire damage, additional arrow if you're going to spend the big monies. And then try and craft a Fizz bow. And in the end, we got a decent enough one with flaring, a little bit of fire damage, crit, and Fizz, attack speed. They're pretty basic types of bows. There's not a lot happening on bows except for additional arrows. So even a non-synthesized, non-influenced, nothing base, you're trying to get up to about 500 DPS with some crafting, and I just alt-regaled until some good things happened. Did make a few decent ones, and this is probably the best of the lot. And then multi-mod, of course, to get some good rolls, and lucky Harvest Divine for some good divines. So can just buy one. Lots of Fizz bows out there, but I think they're kind of fun to craft. So big Fizz damage to start with, a little bit of extra fire just for blast rain action. Still using a drill neck, that's the only non-completed piece at the moment, I think. I'll probably grab either a signal fire or a very, crafted warlord type quiver. You can get additional arrow, you can get Fizz's fire damage, crit multi, all that sort of jazz. Just running an additional blast rain arrow, Star Conjure. Some gloves, which I've put a bit of extra Fizz's fire conversion, thanks to, or just purely to get the explosion of the explosion chest a little bit converted to start scaling some more. Same boots as before from other characters. A ring which cost me somehow 40C, flammability on hit, can get flammability on hit, or LE weakness on hit as implicits, and then get good ones if you can craft them. And then that frees up our other ring to be crafted with a Hysteria, so Fizz as extra fire, and some accuracy, I guess. Previous belt that I've used before as well, reduced flask charges, and then of course the chest. Currently it's pretty basic bitch, it doesn't really do anything. You just grab a base, 6 whites that people are selling, smash it with a hunter orb, so then it's a hunter chest. We made additional curse on it. We grabbed another chest that has explosion mod, costs 1 exalt off the market. We awakened orbed it, and basically nothing happened. And then I crafted life, and now I'm just re-rolling suffixes through harvest until something good happens, or until I can craft my own additional crit, maybe some chaos res, that sort of stuff. The explosion chests, with the right amount of harvest, extremely easy to make. You can guarantee just about everything you want. And in this build, explosion chest doesn't really seem to be doing that much. We're not scaling it particularly well, and it's not really helping out clear all that much, just a teensy bit. So I wouldn't stress if you can't get an explosion chest. If you've got just have a good chest to use, by all means, just use it. I don't think it's truly crucial, but it is good for corpse destruction, and I'm not currently using any cluster jewels. If I was, then you could grab like a cremator to make, you know, corpse enemies go away. But the passive tree is a pretty typical bow passive tree. We're going all the way to our friendly silent life wheel. Dual sockets are fairly nice, and does help fill out stats. So just some fire and Ellie multi attack speed, some resists. Likewise there, attack speed, fire. Do have a double Watcher's Eye here, only cost 1x, so why not pick it up? This is extra fire with anger. That's probably our best form of scaling, or anger fire penetration. And then a bit of attack speed with precision. Still got one jewel left to pick up there. Am using a Lionized Fall for all this extra crit and leech from the claw nodes, though I was contemplating doing an entire cluster here. Don't think it was particularly worthwhile in the end. You'd have to cut out a lot of points of other stuff, and it might be worth it, but for the time being, I think Lionized Fall is fine. One more jewel up here, and then all the bow shit. Probably finishing off phase acro eventually, maybe. And then, you know, little flask quality of life nodes. Nothing particularly special going on, I don't think. Got ourselves a Cinder Swallow and Dying Sun. The single target has been pretty solid so far, and I'm hoping for big things on this character in the end game, but still a bit of a delay, a little bit of a weird playstyle, and then ultimately placing your totems or ballistas feels pretty good at the moment. I was kind of apprehensive about it, but putting it into the build has done nothing but just pretty much double our DPS, I think. So not too shabby. Multi-totem, Ellie Focus, Artillery Ballista. This one is Divergent for 1 additional arrow. Hardly matters, but why not grab it? Conk Effect, Inspiration, and Vicious Proj. Up here we have Second Wind attached to Dash and Blink Arrow, also a Stone Golem, Spell Slinger, Precision 1, Anger, and Herald of Ash, and then Sniper's Mark that we have to manually curse, but it's 70% increased damage from projectile hits with the Deadeye Ascendancy against enemies, so that's just too big a multiplier to ignore. Kinda have to do it. And then we've got Wave of Conviction, Arcanist Brand, and Blood Rage. Wave of Conviction and Arcanist Brand will apply exposure to the enemy, given that we are pure fire in this setup. Only really ever use it for bosses because it's pretty damn slow to be using and clumsy. That's about it to say about the character for now. So far, so good. Bow in 2021 doesn't feel too bad, but it will probably be fairly gear reliant. Still not the best thing to do with absolutely nothing, but I think you can make plenty of different bow builds work right now. Hopefully, we can take it to the end game and not feel too shit. But as per usual, bow builds run out of single target unless you truly are scaling it through the roof with lots of gear. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.